go away.
This used to be a free country, you communists. You're a communist.
I'm a communist. I'm a communist, yeah.
What are you, a moron? Go
Must
away.
be, yeah.
Go away.
To you.
Go away. You take photos to put onto websites to incite people to hurt people.
No, that's what your people do.
To incite people to
That's what your-
violence.
no,
we don't.
I disagree with
You
violence.
don't take photographs of me.
Off you go.
Why? Or what?
I don't care, mate.
Okay, don't worry. Hello, mate. Let the lady through. Come on, you thugs.
Off you go. I know what you want to do, be a martyr. Just go up
I'm
the
getting
road.
Martin. Let's do a bit of filming.
Just go up the road, right? Just go up the road.
You'd like to give us an interview, Cole?
National front, right? Yeah, fine, it's national front. Do whatever you do. The anti-army people tonight, right, boys. Tony Martin, who's banned from Facebook. You ask your governor.
How do you feel about the Labour Party wanting to replace the white working class?
Oh, you are National Front, aren't you?
That's right, yeah.
You're a fascist, you don't talk.
Well, no, I'm not actually, but I was just willing to ask you a question.
Don't talk to Nazis, then.
Okay, fair enough. Hi everyone, thanks for coming on board today. Got a couple of there's a couple of people in the showing up as being on. I haven't got any comments yet, so if someone could just do a comment just so that I know people are here. Okay, Merry Christmas, everyone. This will probably be, well, this will be the last live stream before Christmas, because a week today is obviously Christmas. So I'll give next week a miss, and then the following week I'll be a day early on the Wednesday rather than doing I'll be the Tuesday. I'll be on the Tuesday the following week, so that I'll miss New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. I'm not sure what's happening with the comments, because we do normally always get comments on here, so I don't know if there's any trouble with them getting through. Yep. Very strange. I don't know if I've done something wrong there or. Hopefully that'll sort itself out in a bit. It shouldn't be that long today. I've only got a few things to talk about today. The first one is going back to Stephen Lawrence again. I know we talk about him quite a bit, bearing in mind what happened with him happened over 30 years ago now, and they're still going on about it. But there's an article here. Where am I reading this in? In the Telegraph. Stephen Lawrence's killer denied release from prison, and David Norris, who's one of the men who was convicted of murdering Stephen Lawrence, I believe he was originally found not guilty and then was retried under double jeopardy laws. And to me, I'm not a legal expert, but to me the conviction looked very dodgy in the first place. There's virtually no proof that it was racially motivated, and they were denied the right to remain silent. They had to comply with the Macpherson inquiry, which landed up incriminating them, and I believe evidence was used against them in their trial, as was evidence from a dodgy forensic lab that had been in trouble for a few things and was under scrutiny at the time. So from what I've seen about, and they're not nice people, so it's but the conviction was definitely looked dodgy. They probably did do it, to be fair, but the conviction did look very dodgy. And I'm sure under normal circumstances, without the media pressure, they never would have been found guilty of the murder. The Daily Mail actually declared that they were guilty. Both David Norris and 3 or 4 other lads were all declared guilty by the Daily Mail. And again, I'm not a supporter of Tommy Robinson, but if you look at when he was convicted of contempt of court for broadcasting outside of the trial of a rape gang, and it was alleged that could interfere with the trial, and it is unlikely to happen, but some people even said that the trial could have got thrown out over it. Again, I don't believe that was true, but the Daily Mail got away. I don't even think they got a fine for condemning 4 or 5 people that at the time weren't convicted of Stephen Lawrence's murder. But again, he's been when he was originally convicted, I believe that was in 2010, he was given life with a minimum of 14 years. And the 14 years obviously ran out last year. He's now admitted to the murder. I don't know whether he admitted to that because he did it, or if he admitted to it because it would help with his bail hearing. So we still don't know that he actually did it just because he's confessed to it. Because as we know from the 2-tier justice system following the Southport attacks, a lot of innocent people are encouraged to plead guilty, either to get time off their sentence or to get bail or whatever like that. So just because someone's pleaded guilty doesn't mean that they did it. Like I said, he probably did do it, but I'm not trying to say he's a saint and that he's innocent. But again, it's a very dodgy thing here. But then it also goes on. I need to find where I was in the thing. I should highlight these things better. Norris was allowed. Where is it? Yeah, the panel also found that there was a serious possibility that he had committed other knife attacks. The attempted murder of Stacey Benfield in 1993, to which he was acquitted. So basically, one of the reasons given for not giving him parole is the fact that he may have been involved in an attempted murder and other knife crimes. But this particular knife crime here, he was acquitted of. So again, he could quite well have done it. I'm not saying the guy's a saint, but he's being punished here for a crime that he's actually been acquitted for. So again, they was denied the right to a fair trial, with media interference. There was a lot of pressure to get a conviction on the police, on the forensics people, and things like that. And I could be mistaken because I haven't looked this up for a while, but I believe when they were originally charged with a murder and found not guilty, they could have written a letter to the I don't know if it's the police or the prison service to get their clothes back that were in evidence, and they had every right to get their clothes back. So he could have, and I would have thought someone who was guilty and had been found not guilty would do. I suppose he didn't. He wasn't aware of the double jeopardy laws that were going to change. They actually changed the law to bring these people to court. They changed the double jeopardy laws. It was previously you would be unable to re-prosecute someone for the same crime, but they changed that, and they brought them to trial again with that. So basically, the original conviction looks very dodgy. Like I said, he probably did do it, but does look very, very dodgy. Probably isn't good enough in a court of law. Like I said, I'm not a legal expert, but I think everyone knows that. So then, and like I said, and now one of the reasons given for not giving him parole is the fact that he may have committed a crime that he has actually been acquitted of. So really, if they've got new evidence in that case, they should retry him for that. If they haven't, it shouldn't have any involvement in a parole hearing. They're basically saying you were found not guilty for that, but we're gonna punish you, or you was acquitted for that, but we're going to punish you anyway. Let's go back onto. Oh, we've got comments coming up now. So I don't know if there was a delay or anything like that. Evening. Evening. Oh, I'm only putting these up quickly because there's quite a few of them now. This is an interesting one here. I get asked this quite a lot. Tony, do you think Tommy Robinson knowingly works for the state or other forces, is just an unwitting tool, or neither? I'd say the unwitting tool, really. I've said a few times before, I think in order to run someone who's actually like an agent, whether it's Mossad or MI5 or whatever like that, is going to cost hundreds of thousands of pounds a year per person. I've referred to the Donnie Brasco film before, which is based on a true story, where people that are properly undercover or proper agents actually working for an agency have whole teams of people behind them. So I don't believe that things like that happen very often with actual sort of agents or anything like that. What probably does happen is people get given a few quid here and there, and with the likes of Tommy Robinson and most of the Zionist lobby in Britain, they probably do get money, but I wouldn't have thought it'd be directly. They get money, donations from private individuals, from think tanks, from various things like that, and stuff like that. So I don't think that he gets paid in shekels or he gets an MI5 check or anything like that. And I don't think any of them do. I think basically, if you're in politics, you can get donations, and if you're doing some sort of media work, whether it's a podcast or live reporting or anything like that, obviously you get paid for views, and some people get donations and things like that as well. So anyone who supports Israel is going to do better financially than they would do if they didn't. So I don't. It's probably somewhere in between rather than an unwitting tool. He's probably got a rough idea of what's going on, but I doubt he's actually in cahoots with or taking direct orders from anyone within either the British or Israeli or American governments. Well, probably even things like Elon Musk, although it'd be his own money rather than American government money. I've said this a few times before as well, but he Hope Not Hate claims that he let Tommy Robinson and Katie Hopkins and various people back on Twitter as soon as he bought it. But in actual fact, he let them on when Israel went to war, when Israel started bombing Gaza. So before even ground troops had gone into Gaza, when they just started bombing it directly after the October attacks. So you've got things like that, and I tried to get back on Twitter at the same time, and they wouldn't let me back on, and I was banned at the same time as Tommy Robinson and Katie Hopkins and people. And it seems that Musk let all the pro-Israel people back onto his platform. I think it was still called Twitter at the time. It's obviously now X, but he let them back on, and I assume that he did that because he knew Israel would need a lot of support in the media for the genocide that they were about to partake in. So it obviously helps his finances and his reach and things like that to be supporting Israel and various things. There's another. It brings me on to another thing. I didn't put it in the things I was going to talk about, but with the or did I? With the attack on Bondi Beach last weekend, which obviously was sickening. I obviously don't support Israel or sort of Jewish influence in the Western world, but when there's families, anyone who's not an immediate threat, you can't go around killing people. It's sickening. It's sickening when it happens to British people. It's sickening when it happens in Australia, and it's sickening when it happens in Palestine as well. But they're in Australia. They're looking to clamp down on people's freedom of speech over the killings. I have got it here, and so that they've been looking to clamp down on what they call anti-Semitism anyway, and this has given them every opportunity to do it. I'm not one to believe in too many conspiracy theories. Well, I do believe in some of them, should I say? But I'm not one to believe in false flag attacks because. Well, you look at how much effort would have to go into something being a false flag attack. If in order for this to be a false flag attack, it would mean that none of the people really existed, and various things like that, and it would cost tens of millions, maybe more, to try and implement that. And there'd be so many weaknesses. They'd have to have hundreds, if not thousands, of people involved that actually know it's false flag, who could spill the beans at any time. So I don't believe any of those are false flag. What I do believe happens is a lot of the time, security services, whether that's MI5, CIA, Mossad, I don't really know the Australian security like secret services are, but I'd imagine that they've got them and had the same thing. But I'd imagine a lot of the time they let things go through, they let things get agitated, and they sort of kind of let things happen. They don't. I wouldn't have thought they directly let a specific incident happen, but they deliberately allow weaknesses so that when an attack does happen, they can use it to their full advantage. And Netanyahu's been on it straight away, condemning the Australian PM for being anti-Israel and weak on anti-Semitism. And whatever you think about him, he isn't that. He's been doing the Israel's bidding for them, similar to the UK. They've been supplying aircraft parts to the IDF. So they're by no means in bed with the Islamists. They are supporters of Israel and of the ongoing genocide in Gaza. So that is absolutely twisting things to do that. And again, it always seems to me to be the people that are supposedly on the same side as people that are the ones that politicize situations. You've obviously got Netanyahu doing it in this case with the Bondi Beach attack, and during the run up to the Leave campaign, to the referendum, when a British MP, Joe Cox, got murdered. The same thing happened there. Most of the Leave campaigners agreed to stop campaigning for 24 hours, and then the Remain supporters, she was a Remain supporter, the people on her side, supposedly on her side, were still campaigning. There was loads of people talking in the media, and rather than talking about the tragedy of her death, they're talking about how much she supported remaining in the EU and things like that, and just abusing the situation. So yeah, the same thing's happening here with this Bondi Beach attack. But again, like similar to 9/11 and 7/7, things like this get used to curb people's freedoms, and it's not a matter as if they're just going to clamp down on the Islamists or the Palestinian supporters or anyone like that. They're going to use that to clamp down on everyone. Similar to the so a lot of the people on the far left were complaining that facial recognition wasn't used on Tommy Robinson's protest on the 11th of October, and but the same people were complaining about facial recognition, saying that it could be used against protesters. I still don't think officially it hasn't been used against any protests yet, or so they were saying a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if that's changed. I know Tommy Robinson had another event in London last weekend. I think this one was a lot smaller. It was a supposedly Christian event where they were talking about putting the Christ back into Christmas. And although I don't support Tommy Robinson, I support people doing that. I think sometimes when people trying to come across more religious than they really are, comes across as fake. I consider myself to be a cultural Christian. I celebrate Christmas and Easter, and I write down Protestant or Church of England on forms. So I'm culturally Christian. I'm not. I don't regularly attend church or anything like that, although I've got a lot of friends that do that. But I think it can come across as a bit hypocritical when you try and make out that you are. But personally, I think there is a lot of an effort at the moment to take Christ out of Christmas. Like Christmas obviously means Christ's Mass, and things like that. So by you saying Xmas instead of Christmas, you're basically saying someone whose name shan't be mentioned. It's Mass. So could you imagine if similar things was happening to Ramadan or Hanukkah or anything like that, where they just start put an X there like it was an expletive. Like sometimes when people use the F word, you see F, X, 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 like that, where they've done that, and it's the same with Christmas. I think they've started pulling back on it a bit now, but I did start seeing in a lot of books, a lot of history books, where when I was at school, you had AD, Anno Domino, in the year of our Lord, or BC, before Christ, to give the years, usually years that are probably more than 1,000 years ago, that people might not be sure whether it was before or after Christ. So that was the common thing when I was at school, and I'm not sure when it started, but I first noticed it about 3 or 4 years ago. I was seeing CE and BCE on programs and in books and magazines, and I had to look it up because I wasn't really sure what it was. But basically, what they did is they replaced BC, before Christ, with BCE, before Common Era. And then they've replaced AD with CE, Common Era. So basically, they've replaced Christ in years with common instead. So it's so I think things like that sickening, and it's a deliberate thing because for over 1,000 years, people have been saying BC and AD, regardless of whether they're Christian or not. It's a common reference point to when they're talking about. If people don't want to use Christ, they should probably change the date when year 0 was as well, to whether if they're Islamists they could do Muhammad or whatever like that. But they don't. They just go with the same years so that everyone obviously understands what everyone's talking about. But they take Christ's name out of it and any reference to him. And a lot of people would say that that's the Muslims doing that. But really, Muslims don't tend to kick up that much of a stink about things like that. The main thing Muslims, in my experience, have kicked up fusses about is things like drinking and dogs and how women dress and things like that, rather than what you call a year or anything like that. Again, I don't know if it's all Muslims or a lot of Muslims, but they recognise Christ as a prophet, but just not the Son of God. So there's no. In my opinion, this would be more either the far left anti-Christian movement or the Zionist lot that have been doing that. But again, you've got the Christmas light. I said Christmas lights, they're more winter lights now. You've got the winter lights in London and various other cities. You've got the Winter Wonderland in Hyde Park. I assume it's there this year. I haven't been around there, but previous years, it's always been the winter wonderland, but they don't call it Christmas. And again, when I was a child, I never went up to Oxford Street at Christmas when I was a child, but they used to have a switching on of the Christmas lights and things like that. But it almost goes without passing now, where Ramadan and various other immigrant alien replacement cultures have passed Christmas. So so it's definitely happening. I saw a video by that Asian woman who was joking around and taking the mickey about how people think Christmas is getting forgotten about and how it isn't really, and showed Christmas lights and people out celebrating Christmas in central London. But obviously there are still lights. They're not really that Christmassy, and people out having fun. Nobody's saying that Christmas is completely gone and that nobody's celebrating it, but it is definitely gradually getting replaced. It's getting celebrated less than it was 10 years ago, and then 10 years ago it was getting celebrated a lot less than when I was a child. There's one. The lefties tolerate terrorism. No animal tolerates terrorism. No. And that's it. That's it exactly. I sometimes watch History Debunked, Simon Webb's channel, and he was talking about the suffragettes and how. And I think I read a book. I think it was by him. I read a book about the suffragettes. I think that was by him as well, saying how they were terrorists. They blew up churches. They killed 3 or 4 people. They weren't the sort of lovies that the far left make out. Nelson Mandela was obviously a terrorist, and I think most of the people that his terrorist organisation killed were other blacks, and he's celebrated as if he was some sort of pacifist campaigner or something like that. And the list of examples goes on and on. Like you've got the IRA hunger strikers, and they're quite often referred to as if they were political prisoners rather than convicted terrorists. So you've got all that, and then you've got the Second World War, where there were various different partisan militia groups that were like the International Brigade and people like that were involved in basic terrorism. You've got the execution without trial of Benito Mussolini. Again, these far left, they'd be against the civilized execution of convicted child killers, but they support and even celebrate the murder or execution without trial of prisoners of war. So that it's absolute double standards. Similar as well to with Saddam Hussein, although he was tried and convicted. I don't know how safe the trial was, but the way in which he was executed, I watched a video of it at the time, and there were people jeering and shouting and throwing shoes and things like that, and completely different to when it was happening over here with Pierpoint and all that. I'm aware several hundred years ago it would have been different here with public hangings and people were in the stocks and things like that. But that was literally hundreds of years ago. When executions last happened in the UK and when they still happen in America, it's a civilized, or it was and it is a civilized affair. It's not something that you want to do. It's something that you have to do. And I thought the I still call it a murder of Saddam Hussein was sickening. Never seen that. Thought it was BC and AD. Yeah, I think it started to go back a bit that way. Again, I went to the British Museum not so long ago, and that was back saying BC and AD. So I don't know if it was something someone pushed for a while and it never really stuck. But sometimes, if you listen out for it when you're watching it, if you watch anything on the History Channel or on YouTube or anything about anything in the past, quite often they say BCE and CE instead of that. Too many holes in religions for me. Yep. Let's look for a few of these. Saddam was fitted up. Yep. Because that was it exactly, with the supposed weapons of mass destruction, and they knew they weren't there. That they weren't there from the start. So, in my opinion, and also a lot of people's opinions, people like Tony Blair and George Bush should have been tried, and if convicted, hung for their crimes. Similar to, I didn't realise until a couple of years ago that when the Taliban originally took control of Afghanistan in the late 90s, early 2000, they where their religion is against, everyone's aware that Islam is against alcohol, but under that rule, drugs come into this, recreational drugs or whatever come into the same category. So where alcohol is haram, so is heroin and things like that. So although individual warlords were still cultivating poppies for heroin, the Taliban really clamped down on that. And then prior to the Britain and the United States invading Afghanistan, opium production in Afghanistan had virtually stopped. It was like 1% or 2% of what it had been 10 years earlier. And so really the Taliban had just right before that had actually done us in America, or the people in Britain and America, should I say, rather than the actual people ruling the country, is a big favour by stopping that. And then once we had control of Afghanistan for a number of years, in order to keep the tribal leaders and the warlords happy, Britain and America just basically let them start growing the poppies again, and created or reinstalled the drug problem with heroin that's previously been there. And again, now the Taliban are back in control of Afghanistan. I'm not a supporter of the Taliban by any means, but there's some good things in virtually everyone and every regime. And in the case of the Taliban, is 20 odd years ago they stopped the production of opium, and now they're well on the way to doing that again. So when you look at it from a British or American perspective, it was better having the Taliban in control than it was having us in America in control. It's an absolute joke. You wouldn't believe it. In fact, I'd ask everyone after the live stream to check what I've said, because even I think it must be wrong, because it seems so counterproductive to do something like that. Sometimes I think governments like having people on drugs. I think it makes people more easily controlled. Could you imagine if there was no marijuana, if nobody got stoned in that? Like the amount of people that I've spoke to at work and things like that just go home, and at the weekend they just sort of skin up and it sort of placates them, so they don't get angry about things, and they just they just don't care. So it sort of suits the government to have people like that. See if you more. Trying to catch up with the comments here. Yep. Bush and Blair, both 100% war criminals. Yep, the Taliban banned heroin. Yep, they want everyone drugged up or drunk. That way they're unaware of what's happening. Cake and circus, I think it is, isn't it? Yeah. Same as a lot of these distractions that everyone gets a lot wound up with. Like you've got all the boats coming in, which obviously is a problem. But compared to legal immigration, it's a minor one. I'm against the boats coming in, but I'm against all these others coming in. I find it's interesting that people have decided to go out to Calais now, or about a month ago recently, to start trying to disrupt the boats coming over when it sort of dries up around this sort of time anyway. I don't know if you could give them the benefit of the doubt and maybe they've been planning to do it for ages and it took more organising than they realised, or you could just think that they're going out there to try and to make it look like they're doing something. They're less likely to get beaten up or murdered as it's getting a bit more quiet, and they can claim some sort of victory by doing that. So you've got to wonder about the motivation for it. I've thought about doing something like that. I haven't got around to it. I haven't got the funding, so I probably shouldn't be criticising other people. But if I was to do it, I'll try and get out there for sort of April or May as things are beginning to get a bit more active with things like that. What I'd like to do with that would be, has anyone seen the program Whale Wars that used to be on, where they used to they was going against the Japanese whaling fleet and they'd tow ropes in front of the whaling ships and it'd tangle the propeller of the ship, and the Japanese would have to send divers down to get to the ropes and untangle them, and they'd be out of action for an hour or so each time that they did that. And these ships are massive factory ships, so being out of action for an hour costs them like tens of thousands or something. I see Polanski has been out helping in Calais. Yeah, I think he was helping the other side of it. Yeah. He's a very, very dodgy character. He is, and another interesting thing is that I've probably said this before, but all this stuff they're dragging up about Farage telling jokes when he was at school or whatever he was doing, and then you've got Polanski as an actual adult had a practice on Harley Street, tricking women that he could enlarge their breasts by hypnosis. And again, this is one of those things that I read it. I thought this has got to be an April Fool's joke. And that there's a story on him going back 10, 15 years ago, before he was involved in politics, when he was doing it. But he literally was conning money out of women. I don't know if he was having a perv up as well, but he was conning money out of women by telling them they could avoid the pain and risks of surgical procedure to enlarge their breasts by going to see him, and he'd hypnotize them into having larger breasts. I don't know if he hypnotized them into thinking they had larger breasts or whether there was any any truth in it, but it seems hard to me to believe that somebody like that would be allowed into politics. Could you imagine if somebody had a past like that in nationalism and it came out? But again, the far left don't seem to be bothered with that. They're concerned about people telling jokes back when they were at school, but then they're not bothered about somebody actually being, in my opinion, a con man. He'd probably say he wasn't a con man. I don't think he was actually convicted of anything, but it definitely looks dodgy to be saying that. What have we got here? David Polden. Yeah, that's that was actually his birth name. Apparently, his family were Eastern European Jews, and they actually were called Polanski. But then I don't know whether it was his father or grandfather tried to integrate, and they changed the family name to Polden instead of Polanski. But I don't know why he couldn't have kept kept the name David, even if he changed his surname. But he changed that as well. So very, very strange case. The left are trying to sort of build him up like he's the next big thing, like he's going to take on the establishment. And this, although we all know he's part, or they're all part of the establishment, but it's it's an absolute joke. Here's one. Yeah, I wonder if he was related to Roman Polanski. Yeah, he's the disgraced film producer who fled America to Poland to avoid. I think it was paedophilia, wasn't it? It was at least some sort of sexual assault. I think it was paedophilia, and the Polish authorities said they would never extradite a child of the Holocaust. In other words, excusing his behaviour because he survived the Holocaust. I don't think he survived it as in the death camps, but he was like a child at the time. But how can anything that's happened to somebody okay them to commit horrendous crimes like that? I can understand somebody who's recently gone through a traumatic ordeal, maybe getting in a fight or a bit of drunken disorderly or something, but to actually abuse a child and for that to be an excuse for it is absolutely sickening. Yeah, snake oil salesman. I assume that's Polanski. Cash and Pervin, I imagine. It was surprising that he didn't get done for it. I think he just, I don't know if he packed up once. I think the Sun exposed him. They did an article on him, but I have a feeling Labour voters will move to the Greens. Yeah, but and you've also got the new Your Party with Jeremy Corbyn and that. Although that seems to be a complete and utter mess. So we'll see what happens there. I would love to debate some of them. I'd love to debate, like I've done so many times with stand-up to racism and people like that. Their arguments just fall apart. Where they're calling for safe routes for migrants, it's like there's potentially even billions, at least over 100 million refugees that would like to come here, and if you create safe routes for them, you've either got to create safe routes for all of them, which would be a disaster for everyone, us and them, or just create safe routes for less than 1% of them or 1 or 2% of them, in which case all the boats and that are just going to carry on like they were before. The most, probably the safest thing and the best thing for all involved, us and them, is just to send them back as soon as they arrive. That's quite a good question there. Yeah. Tony, with growing support for both Green Party and Reform UK opinion polls, do you think we will see polarisation of British politics in coming years and radicals dominate and the centre squeezed? We are beginning to see that, and there's the Overton window is enlarged quite a bit in both directions. You've got decent people, patriots, talking about re-immigration and things like that, and then you've got and racial nationalism and stuff, and then you've got on the other side of the spectrum, you've got all these traitors talking about paying reparations to blacks for nothing that happened to them. That's things that happened hundreds of years ago that they've actually benefited from, we're actually expected to pay compensation to people for something that they've benefited from, and we haven't. If anything, they owe us reparations. But obviously that won't happen. But like I've said a few times with that, what will happen is if they get enough of them here, they just vote for it, whether they deserve it or not. It doesn't really matter whether they deserve it, because like I said, they will vote for it. But yeah, the Overton win has definitely enlarged, and there's people freely speaking about more stuff. Again, that's why they're trying to bring in laws and that to stop that. In some respects, hopefully it's a good thing. I remember Richard Edmonds saying years ago that when UKIP were getting good votes, that when the National Front got wiped out of the 79 general election, the electorate had gone back to the Tories, back to one of the main two political parties. And although when UKIP were doing well back when Richard Edmonds said it, and Reform now, although it's not ideal, they're not any better than the Tories, they're not going to do anything to help anyone, at least it has broken the pattern of voting for the two main parties. So hopefully that could be a good thing. And as well with the Greens as well, that them getting votes is hopefully a good thing. I don't support them in any way, and I wouldn't like them to win power, but them taking votes off the Labour Party is a good thing. I think the internet's had a lot to do with it as well, because it's a lot harder for them to gatekeep. Like even just having this live stream now, I know there's only a few people on, but we got a decent group of regulars who come on here, and it gets the word out a bit, and other people have got platforms doing well and getting more views than I get. But that tends to open up the window. As before, you wouldn't get a chance. You wouldn't be on TV. You wouldn't get to write in newspapers and or the radio or anything like that. And they just play their straw man. They still play the straw man argument, and they've still got a lot more reach than we have. But at least it's a little bit more even now with the internet. And again, with Musk, like I said, he's obviously a Zionist. He obviously supports Robinson and that a lot more than he does us. But at least we have got a bit more of an opportunity, even on Facebook and YouTube. When Musk was the first one to get rid of a lot of the fact checkers and the admins and things like that, Facebook and YouTube, I should think YouTube did as well, but Facebook did as well. And on virtually the whole internet now, there's more free speech than there was beforehand. So at least that's a good thing. And also, to be fair, I haven't had any bans since Musk took over Twitter. I used to get sort of, not regularly, but every once in a while, I'd get a 3-day ban or a post taken down or whatever like that. I'd create safe routes to send them home. Yep, that's the way to do it. Again, the ones who can't go home, like there's talk about genuine refugees and bogus ones, but even the genuine ones, they should go to countries similar to them, both economically and culturally similar to where they've come from. One example that's given for Britain traditionally taking in refugees is the Huguenots, but they were French Protestants, i.e. France, one of our neighbouring countries, and Protestants at the time. Britain was not actually at war, but we was in arguing with France over religious things, with France being predominantly Catholic and Britain being predominantly Protestant. So it made sense. They were culturally similar to us. They had skills that they could offer us. They were racially the same, and they were easy to absorb into Britain, both culturally and financially. But then when you've got people coming from other parts of the world that are racially different, culturally different, and a lot poorer, I'm not knocking them for being poor, but it's an incentive. It's an incentive to to come to Britain, you see newspaper extracts where they're complaining about living in damp flats in Croydon and places like that. But compared to where they've come from, that's the lap of luxury. There's probably millions of people that would dream of living in a damp flat in Croydon, and they think they've made it. I assume that's on the yeah. E.g., what happened in Northern Ireland, the Australisation. Everybody thought that the government would be UUP and SDLP partnership, but it turned out to be Sinn Féin and DUP in power. Yep. Thanks for subscribing there. Yep, that's it. Yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe, everyone. Thanks. Are used to mud huts. Yep. That's it on that. What other things did I have to talk about? I sorted out a couple of things to talk about. Yeah, they've a child assassin, 12, shoots wrong person dead after being hired for £20,000 hit. Is it pounds? Yeah, for £20,000 hit. And this was in Malmo in Sweden. I don't know how much people know about Sweden. My own knowledge is limited, but I'm not sure what the age. I think the age of criminal liability is about 14 or 15, might even be 16 in Sweden. Whereas in the UK, I think it's 10, although it's to a lesser degree than it is for adults. But basically, you've got kids carrying out grenade attacks in previous articles. I think most of them have just damaged properties and they're meant for intimidation rather than actually killing people. But then you've got this case where these foreign gangs are paying, I assume it's from their own communities as well, they're paying kids to carry out these atrocities knowing that they can't be charged. And this kid was in a vehicle. I don't know if it was other kids driving the vehicle, probably stolen. I don't know. And they shot into a vehicle, but they killed the wrong person who was traveling in the same vehicle. They are looking to push because of the severity of the crime. They are looking to push it to charge the child, but it goes to show the state of affairs and something that's intended or supposedly intended to protect children, not prosecuting them until they reach a certain age, is actually to their detriment because they're deliberately being targeted by criminal gangs to carry out these atrocities because of that rule. If it wasn't for that rule, I would have thought that the criminal gangs would use adults to carry out assassinations because they're more likely to be able to carry it out properly from being stronger, more professional about it and things like that. And then also they're less likely to blab about it afterwards. So a law that assumably is intended to protect children is actually having the opposite effect. And surely Sweden's got to change that law. I think a lot of laws are written here in America, in Europe, based on most people being civilized, and the laws work pretty well as long as everyone's civilized. And then you bring these alien cultures into it, and everything just falls apart. Yeah. They are a pointless burden. What have they brought technologically to Britain? Absolutely nothing. And again, that's why they have to lie about it. I'm not saying that they're lying, but the people in the media and historians and things like that, they're inventing things to make it seem like they're a lot more useful than they are. When if they actually were useful, they wouldn't need to make up lies about it. Yeah. That's gone crazy in Sweden. They got all kids doing hits via social media. Yeah, it's absolutely sickening. Again, I've said this quite a few times. I think that anyone who encourages a child to engage in criminal activity should get treated legally the same way as a paedophile. If someone encourages a child to commit a sexual act, they're obviously tried for it. It's a separate crime on top of whatever else they've committed, and they get done for it. And it should be the same way for people encouraging, and not just things like assassinations, but people encouraging kids to hide weapons or sell drugs or anything like that. They should be getting done, as well as for drug dealing and weapons. They should be done for child abuse as well, because it is child abuse. Hi mate, love the videos. Living in Bromley at the moment. Can't wait to leave Cairns, London. Keep up the good work. Thanks very much. And that's someone from one of the nicest parts of London. I've got family in the borough of Bromley, and obviously it's right next door to Croydon, so I know it reasonably well. That's an interesting one. Tony, is mass immigration primarily driven by capitalism with ideology as justification to what I'm looking at here? Gullible lefties, or do you see it as an ideological or as purely trying to read that purely radical ethnic conflict or something else? I think it's different things to different people. I think, like, from the conservatives' point of view, that's big C conservatives, that it's a financial capitalism thing. It pushes down wages and it pushes up property prices and things like that, and it's good for their economy. I say their economy, not the economy, because obviously it benefits the rich a lot more than it does the poor. It's like when people say that immigration has failed. It's only failed depending on what it was intended to do. And I believe that it's succeeded in doing what they intended to do with it, i.e. pushing down wages, pushing up house prices, and making people scared of the environment around them. There's probably a lot of people that would have got more involved in politics and things like that if they thought it was safe to do so. A lot of people sort of think that you're just going to get murdered for speaking out, and although things like that do happen, it is at the moment still very rare. So people shouldn't be worried about that. But unfortunately, people are, and people are scared of what they say to their children in case they repeat it at school and get in trouble for racism and things like that. So mass immigration is used as a weapon against people. I think that's the way the conservatives see it, as mainly a capitalist financial thing. And then with the far left, they're a different kettle of fish. They see it as a way of destroying family values and Christianity and white people. Most of them have got, I think, the sort of lovey-dovey left, I think they barely exist. There's probably a few of them, but I think most people on the left are based, it's about hatred. You've got your LGBTQ plus lot that they try and act like they're the ones always under attack, but it's nearly always them doing the attacking. They're the ones pushing things in schools, pushing things in drag queen story hours and things like that, and turning up at bed and breakfast run by Christian couples to try and destroy their business, and the bakery in Belfast that it happened as well. It's nearly always them that's the aggressor and not the victim. And the same with with the rest of the far left, if you actually speak to any of them, there's some sort of hatred amongst them. First, like when you start talking about white replacement, first of all, they tell you that it isn't happening. Then you go for a few points with them, and then they switch tack, and then they do it and change direction that we deserve it. Look at all the places we colonized, and this, that, and the other. And their angle is that we deserve to be replaced. Collective punishment, it's called when it happens to other people. Reparations, it's called when it happens to us. But it seems that virtually all of them, whether they're coming from a Jewish, Irish, homosexual, all these different angles, that they hate either white people or Britain or Christianity, family values, things like that. So I think it's a mismatch of all the different people doing it, and then also you've got people in between that are just sort of scared to speak out or even speak in favour of immigration because they believe that that's what they're expected to do. There was a geezer bird playing the darts last night. I have no idea what it was or post-op. Never seen anything like it. I didn't actually see that. I do watch the darts sometimes, but I don't watch it regularly, so I don't know anything about that. Any protests in the pipeline? Not at the moment. I'm going to try and organise a few things, probably towards March or something. Oh, that's it. The BBC plaque at Beachy Head has had to be taken down. It turns out the black woman they found from 2,000 years ago wasn't as black as they said. You get that quite a lot. You get as well. You get in history books, people are described as being dark, but that basically just usually means things like they've got dark hair or something like that. They're dark relative to the people around them, not relative to the whole world or to modern Britain. If race doesn't exist, how can they tell she's black? Again, I think it's another thing that Simon Webb was saying on History Debunked, that they've gone back to using the science of the 1930s and calipers and things like that, and the shape of the head and things that was getting condemned a few years ago, but now that it suits them, they bring it up. They bring it up as much as they can. Hi, Tony. Who are your political heroes? Well, there's no one in the mainstream politics. Probably the closest would be Enoch Powell for that. My main hero would be Richard Edmonds. Really, I'd have to say. I know him well. Only since like 2005, 2006, when he first came back from Russia. But the man he was so intelligent and so hardworking and so honest that I don't think anyone's come near him. It'd have to be my biggest hero in politics. I think that's about all I've got. All I've got for today. So I'll have to say Merry Christmas to everyone, or Happy Holidays if anyone prefers that. Hopefully, there's no one on here who prefers that. But yeah, so I won't be on next week because it's obviously Christmas Day next Thursday, and I've got other things to be doing Christmas Eve and such. So I'll be back on the Tuesday after Christmas, which would be, I think is that the 30th, whatever the Tuesday is. I think it should be the 30th. So I'll be back on then at 7:30 to do the live stream. So thanks very much for coming on board, everyone. It's been a pleasure as always. I hope everyone has a great Christmas and gets all the presents that they want. There's a few more comments on there, but yeah, so that's it. So thanks very much, everyone, and I'll look forward to seeing everyone in about 12 days. Okay, then. Thanks very much. Cheers.